Now, projects get cancelled all the time, even big budget tentpole releases like this. I mean, who could let Marvel forget the fact that they announced the Inhumans for the big screen treatment and then just never delivered on it? So what makes this movie so special? Well, that's the simple fact that the studio had already sunk $90 million into this project and that it was nearly complete. The movie was already in post-production and was nearly finished. It was pretty much done, and now it's pretty much dead. As first reported by the New York Post, WB's Batgirl film, which was originally supposed to launch in 2023, has now been shelved indefinitely. Executives have since confirmed that the movie is neither going to be released in cinemas nor on WB's flagship streaming service HBO Max, and the studio is instead just going to eat a $100 million loss. The big question that remains now then is why? There were plenty of reasons to get excited about Batgirl, not least the all-star cast, which included Michael Keaton returning as Bruce Wayne / Batman, and the fact that as a Batman spin-off, it just seemed like a financial no-brainer, especially when the movie, and I can't stress this enough, was nearly finished. So why just eat the cost and kill it dead at the 9th hour? It seemingly doesn't make sense to not even release it on HBO Max. Why just pretend that it never happened? Well, the reality of this decision actually goes back a few years and the restructuring of WB as a whole, and since the news dropped, plenty of reports have since come out detailing reasons why Batgirl just got cancelled. One of the major reasons behind the cancellation of Batgirl is the simple fact that the WB of today is not even the WB of a year ago. So much has changed internally in the company since that time. A major part of that comes down to the company's merger with Discovery and the appointment of a new CEO, David Zaslav. Since Zaslav's appointment, every major WB department has been completely overhauled, and so many projects have just been outright cancelled. In fact, WB Discovery has pretty much been on a cancelling spree ever since the merger was finalized. CNN Plus, for instance, got canned despite a $300 million investment, and WB's small screen superhero offerings as well have been incredibly pared back and minimized to the utmost degree. In fact, Batgirl is not the only superhero project that WB has cancelled this week. That's because a few days ago, the CW confirmed that the Flash series is ending with a shortened 13-episode final season. Effectively, that's been cancelled alongside a bunch of other superhero projects on the CW. And by the way, you should absolutely check out the video we did on the Flash's cancellation over on the What Culture channel. Andrew Pollard did a great job on that vid. It's very informative and actually informs this video, so please check it out. Essentially though, the CW cancelled a bunch of its superhero shows earlier this year, including Batwoman and Legends of Tomorrow, and that's because the network as a whole has seen a major restructuring, with a good chunk of its scripted programming just canned. Essentially, nothing is safe under Zaslav's cost-cutting approach, and Batgirl was just one of many casualties this year. Another key change during the Zaslav era has been WB's approach to both theatrical distribution and its streaming service HBO Max. And that's because the previous regime actually had major ambitions for HBO Max as a platform. Not only was it going to put its biggest movies day and date on the service alongside their theatrical releases, but executives were opting to greenlight a bunch of mid to high budget movies around the $70 million range to debut exclusively only on HBO Max. The plan essentially was to rival the spectacle of Netflix or Disney Plus without getting into the spending habits of Netflix and Disney Plus, and Batgirl was one of the marquee titles molded around this $70 million idea. It was supposed to be a flagship title for the streamer, but all of this was the idea of people no longer at this company. And according to reports, Zaslav has an entirely different approach to distribution both on streaming services and in cinemas. The CEO has ripped up those older plans and no longer intends to release movies in theaters and streaming on the same day, and is instead refocusing on extremely high budget theatrical experiences. Deadline reports then that Batgirl kind of fell into a budgetary no man's land. It was too small to act as a tentpole and to compete against other superhero movies, but too big to be a HBO Max exclusive. WB is all in on big budget spin-offs and sequels to its superhero catalog, and Batgirl was simply too small to fit this new mold. Batgirl was a holdover from an approach that has been totally rejected by new leadership, which was confirmed by a WB spokesperson to The Hollywood Reporter, as they said, quote, "The decision to not release Batgirl reflects our leadership's strategic shift as it relates to the DC Universe and HBO Max," end quote. Another reason that WB isn't releasing Batgirl on any platform as well is that apparently the studio will make more money by cancelling the project than releasing it at all. According to Deadline, one of the major reasons that the movie was cancelled was down to a thing called purchase accounting. Cancelling and writing the film off now, according to the report, quote, "allows Warner Bros. Discovery to not have to carry the losses on its books at a time when the studio is trying to pay down $3 billion in debt across its divisions," end quote. The write-up essentially says that WB were faced with a choice. Either pump way more money into the project to get it up to the level of its other superhero tentpoles, and then spend even more money on top of that to market the film and hope that it succeeds, or go down this purchase accounting route and write the film off and make some money back that way. With the former approach potentially doubling the price of the movie, WB instead opted for the latter idea. Which is a win for WB, I guess, but it sucks for everyone involved in the making of this movie who no doubt tried incredibly hard and put their all into this near-finished flick. This reason was also backed up by Variety, who also said that the main reason for the film's cancellation was down to the decidedly unsexy reason of it being a tax write-down. According to them, this is all in preparation of a quarterly earnings meeting as well. One of the first reasons touted as to why Batgirl was cancelled, though, was simply the fact that the movie, well, it kinda sucked. In the initial New York Post article, the writer said that the test screenings for the movie had been incredibly disappointing. The report went, quote, "Those tests were said to be so poorly received by moviegoers that the studio decided to cut its losses and run for the sake of the brand's future. It's a DC disaster," end quote. Allegedly, WB head honchos thought that the brand would be irredeemable if the movie was poorly received, and as such got cold feet over the whole thing, and then canned the project. Collider reporters also talked to people who were at the test screenings as well, and concurred that they were indeed disappointing. In fact, they reported that Batgirl was distinctly cheap looking, with Michael Keaton's Batman costume in particular being singled out as particularly shoddy looking. However, other sources have contested this as the main reason for the movie's cancellation. Deadline explained that their sources informed them that there had only been one test screening of the movie, and that results were more negative than outright disastrous. Even with that in mind, though, it's clear that the test screening wasn't incredibly positive and didn't fill WB with confidence that they had a hit in waiting on their hands. One interesting tidbit in the Deadline write-up as to why Batgirl got cancelled did include a line that suggested that WB would actually prefer to save the introduction of some characters in the film for other movies. As we know, the DCEU has received a creative shift internally, and as a result, plans for their upcoming movie slate have changed. Just this past month, we've had confirmation that Ben Affleck will be in Aquaman 2, starring once again as Batman, and there are rumours doing the rounds that Henry Cavill will be suiting up again as well to play Superman. Of course, there's also The Flash, which is releasing in 2023, which again stars Michael Keaton as Batman. The Deadline report again suggests that WB thought the reappearance of actors like Keaton in this universe would be better off saved for their big budget tentpoles. And it does make sense in a way. We haven't seen Keaton as Batman in decades, and it would give The Flash in particular a huge marketing boost if his reappearance was saved for that movie, and if it was kept more of a mystery and people were more anticipated to see this big return. Still, that's an issue that should have been brought up years ago. It shouldn't have been decided right now when both of these movies were pretty much finished. With all of this restructuring and all of these cancellations, then, what does the future of the DCEU even look like? Well, thankfully, reports claim that there should be no more surprise cancellations like this in the near future, as this was just a freak thing before the earnings report that I mentioned previously. Still, we do know now that the future of DC movies is focused entirely on big screen efforts, with the Shazam sequel and Black Adam both still set for release in 2022. Likewise, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom and The Flash, which I've already mentioned, are still slated for 2023. Other than that, it has been reported that WB is looking for a Kevin Feige-esque figure in order to oversee all future DC movies. How that will impact future movies like the Batman sequel or Joker 2 or Wonder Woman 3 remains to be seen, but don't be surprised if there are even more cancellations of in-development movies going forward. So those are all the reasons why Batgirl just got cancelled. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think of the new approach of WB Discovery? And are there any in-development projects you're now worried about? Let us know, and while you're down there, could you please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.